Hello YouTube, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. I'm so excited to have y'all back together again, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a ranking video for David Leitch films. This past weekend, the Fall Guy movie came out in theaters, and that means it is the 7th film in his filmography. So that means today I want to stop and rank all 7 David Leitch films from the worst to the best. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, I know what you're thinking, why are you including Once Upon a Deadpool in this list? Well, first off, Deadpool 2, the original version of Deadpool 2 is directed by David Leitch, and David Leitch did come back to direct the PG-13 version of Deadpool 2. But if I'm being totally honest, while I don't necessarily hate any of David Leitch's films, something had to come at the bottom, and Once Upon a Deadpool is the weakest of his filmography. There's nothing really particularly interesting about this movie other than it being Deadpool 2 being re-released in theaters, just all the fun R-rated action being cut and looked like PG-13 action, and you get some fun scenes with Deadpool and Fred Savage. Which, of course, I think the Fred Savage scenes are hilarious. But the problem is, they didn't necessarily do anything interesting with it. Like, honestly, if you want to do a PG-13 version of Deadpool, just do it with the first one. But even then, I don't think, now that I'm older and I'm basically about to turn into an adult next year, you start to realize why Deadpool works for that R-rated audience. Because he's gory, because he breaks the fourth wall, because he curses. It's fun. And when you try to take that out of the Deadpool character, it just ruins it. Which is one of the things I'm really excited for Deadpool and Wolverine, because they're actually going to stick the landing of that. But overall, while this movie has some fun Fred Savage scenes, I'd rather just watch the original version of Deadpool 2, so it comes in last. Now, this is also where I feel like the list starts to get a little bit good, and this is one I gave a B- to, but it is a pretty enjoyable film, but it is kind of schlocky. On the positives, I think that this has some of the best action of all of David Leitch's films. I mean, everything that this movie was able to accomplish is just incredible. I mean, possibly my favorite sequence of the entire movie is when you have Charlize Theron, where you have this one shot where it starts with Charlize Theron and this guy in a car. It goes up into this building, and we get this massive, not massive, but we get this really cool action sequence that is like, guys are keep coming in the building, we're trying to shoot them, and then she's like stabbing them in the neck, throwing them down the stairs. It is just so it's just not vibrant, but it's very visceral, and bloody, but also violent, and it works so well. But even then, other characters in the film, there's other entertaining action sequences throughout the entire movie, so that I think that it works for that. But at the same time, I think that this movie also lacks with story, and I also think it pops with color and vibrance, but at the same time, you don't really care about the story. You like the setting of it, and you like all the action, but you never really cared for the story of this movie, which I think is the big part of what makes this movie kind of weakening. But I would definitely say it's a much better film than Once Upon a Deadpool. Now we have Deadpool 2, the original version, and I think that this is a pretty good movie. On the positives, I think the action is just as good as the first one. I think they handled so many unique things when it came to specific characters. I love the introduction of Domino, played by Zazie Beetz. I love Josh Brolin as Cable, coming out a month after he played Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. And I think the big problem here is the movie kind of has too many things going for it. It's first off, Wade trying to deal with the loss of Vanessa, Then Colossus is trying to get him to be an X-Men. Then he meets this kid in Russell. Then Cable's trying to get this kid, and then he wants to go back to the church and kill the guy with Juggernaut with the help of Juggernaut. And it's just one of the most random movies. It's still fun. The third act has plenty of fun action with Colossus fighting Juggernaut and all that stuff. It's fun. I enjoy all that stuff. And I think it actually gives a proper version of who Juggernaut is. But the problem here is, I guess I do kind of like the story about, Wade's heart not being in the right place. I think that has a little bit of sentimentality to it. But I think besides that, the story is a little bit weak. Whereas the first film didn't even have such a great story. It more of like, I think with the first film, it suffered a little bit because it was all fun and vibrant and very action-packed for an X-Men for a comic book movie. But when it came to like just the story and the villain, it was one of the weaker parts. Which is why I'll hold it against a little bit on my X-Men ranking. But just overall, it's a good movie with good action, but not the best one. Next up we have Bullet Train. This is actually a film that I saw back in March, and I actually really enjoyed this film. Me personally, what I absolutely enjoyed is I just love all of the action. I loved all the interactions between every single actor in this movie, whether it was Aaron Taylor Johnson or the guy that played Miles' dad in Into the Spider-Verse. So many different performances that collided together that made this kind of masterpiece in a way, where it has fun action, it has a fun vibrancy to it. Every scene just feels kind of unique. But it also I feel like it also kind of suffers from that problem in Atomic Blonde, where you don't really care about the story, but except this movie has a lot more vibrancy with the characters and the sequences and the way everything is done. So I think it works a lot better, and that's why I give it an A-. Atomic Blonde it has that bit of charm into it, but not as much as the way Bullet Train does. So I think I enjoyed the charm and stuff a lot more in Bullet Train than I did in Atomic Blonde. In third place is The Fall Guy, and this is the new film that came out this weekend. And honestly, at first when I heard about this movie, I'm like, why is everybody so excited for this movie? Like, it's just another film with Ryan Gosling in an action movie or whatever. And then I kept hearing about it. Oh, he's a stuntman in a movie, inside of a movie. He's a stuntman making a movie inside of a movie. That's actually kind of cool. But then I also realized it's based off a TV show. So I actually watched the Fall Guy series the last few weeks. And what can I say about this movie? I thought the way that they actually were able to do it. I love that they actually kind of made a film about what it means to be, stuntmen. Because most people don't realize it, but stuntmen kind of go through quite a lot. Stuntmen are real people too. Because, we have movies that discover, the stuff of writers and actors, of course, with actors, which is, of course, would be May December, where Natalie Portman has to study Julianne Moore's character to play in a movie. With this movie, it covers stuntmen, and I think it plays for a fun adventure because it's also an action movie where the guy that he's stunting for, that the guy is the real actor in the movie, he gets kidnapped or whatever, and it's up to him to go find him. And you get some fun action here and there, and it's so cool because he's a stuntman, he knows how to use the weapons and stuff, and it's so awesome and cool. Likewise, I think that this movie also just has a bunch of entertainment value, as it's also a romance story. So you have this romance between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, which you never thought that would actually work, because you basically have the two two most charismatic actors from Oppenheimer and Barbie last year interacting. It's so cool. But then you also have the addition of Winston Duke in here, which I thought was a fun addition, who plays Ryan Gosling's friend in the film. So I thought that was a fun addition. But yeah, overall this movie works. It has some good action. It's funny. It has a good story to it. And it's overall just a very fun movie to start off the summer. I personally can't wait to rewatch this maybe in a year or two. Or maybe even show this to my family because it's just such a fun movie. And obviously, this is the Hobbs and Shaw film. And what can you say about this movie? It took the best thing that was about Fate of the Furious with Hobbs and Shaw, and basically put that in with this film. And obviously, I think it's one of the better Fast and Furious films for me. It's definitely one of the best ones, as you get a simple story, as it's not about car racing. It's more of spending time with these two characters, and it's a hell of a fun time. And what I absolutely loved about this is I just love that we get to spend time with Hobbs and Shaw. Every joke, every banter, every argument they have together is brilliant. Every joke they make in the movie is fun and funny. And not only are they the two leads, but you also got Vanessa Kirby, which in a way, this was my introduction to her. And she's great in this movie. And if you were and here's the thing, we're talking way before Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 came out. If you weren't a fan of Vanessa Kirby in Mission Impossible Fallout, watch this movie because she is much better. Or if you want another serious performance where she's not playing such a really fun character, watch her in Good Son, which is a movie that came out in 2023, the same year as Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. But yeah, she's great in here. The movie also has some fun action. I also like Idris Elba as Brixton, our villain in here. And then something else I also liked about this movie is we kind of get to explore Hobbs and Shaw's characters. Where Hobbs, we get to learn about what his childhood was like in the 50s, and Mick Jagger, and what his life was like with his sister. But then we also get to learn more about Hobbs, that he had family, where we actually get to learn where he came from, and we actually get to go to Samoa, and we get to learn about what his relationship was like with his brothers, and what his family's like. And we get a fun third act where basically the third act is at Samoa, and we have all these Samoan warriors fighting these army of agents or whatever. And it's just a ton of fun. And to also see Hobbs and Shaw work together, it's so much fun. The action's fun. It's so funny, so fun. It took everything that you liked about Fate of the Furious and drops it on its head. I love Hobbs and Shaw.
Drop that.
But in first place is John Wick, and this might, if I'm being honest, I probably would have put this at number 4. But now that I'm starting to think about it, and after rewatching many scenes of it, I'm starting to realize why this movie is great. And what makes it so great is it actually takes the simple premise. Now, technically, this isn't really a David Leitch film. It's more of a Chad Stahelski film. But David Leitch co-directed this movie, so I'm including it in this list. And what John Wick did so well is it kind of changed the game for action movies. It's a simple story where a guy kills a bunch of people because they killed his dog and took his car because that was the last remaining stuff of his wife that she gave to him. And the way that this movie was able to tell it, but also be so sincere, have great thrills. But then when it comes to the action, it's actually done very nicely. If anything, this might have some of the best action and have some of the more unique action in the franchise, and also just more of a better story than most of the John Wick movies, where I feel like the next two films, while the story's not really there, the action is by far some of the best, and I love every single piece about that. And so that's probably why I prefer John Wick 4 and John Wick 3 over the first one, mainly because up to that point in time, you're just going there for the action. The world building is good, and they do just enough elements to have those action sequences and have really cool action set pieces where they're shot beautifully. But this film that's just what makes it work so well. And if anything, I think I might update my John Wick list to where this might go on top, because it just does something so uniquely well, and that the rest of the franchise, it's just all done action. It does good world building, but it doesn't do it quite as uniquely as this one. So I think it did it pretty well, and I might have to say I might as well rewatch it. It's a pretty god-darn good movie. I love it. And that's my ranking of all the John Wick movies. Wait. That's my ranking of all the David Leitch movies. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.